ball this weekend and Purple Madness as the Buffalo Bills come to town. And I haven't had this guy on in a couple of weeks. He's one of my favorite guests. If you do tune in here, you know of Mike Harmon and the legend of Fox Sports Radio. He is the Swollen Dome on Twitter, and he, amongst many millions out in Los Angeles, California, welcoming the National Football League back to the Valley of the Sun. What's going on, Harmon? How are things in La La Land out there? Dodgers pulling away. Beware the Dodgers.
Dodgers pulling away. Kershaw on the mend. You've got a lineup of guys that nobody had ever heard of who have now established all new career highs in home runs, even though they're playing in the spacious ballparks of the NL West and Dodger Stadium. No picnic for offensive players. But you got Yasiel Puig back, too, which gives you, an extra cheering section. And then the final month, they're going to give away so much Vin Scully stuff. Here's a bobblehead. Here's a pin. Here's waving to the crowd. They're hoping to just have a huge home field advantage down the stretch. Meanwhile, everybody else doing their hand-wringing, wondering, why isn't Jared Goff ready? What did they do? They screwed it up. So short-sighted. But everybody wants it now. That's the L.A. way.
Well, I was going to ask you, L.A. sort of kind of becomes a football town this week. The NFL, everywhere it goes, it sort of dominates, right? I mean, very few markets where it's not the captain of the ship. And in L.A., it comes in new. By the way, I could not even make it through the second Hard Knocks. I mean, the Hard Knocks, I only got to devote 4 hours of my time to it. After the first 20 minutes, I'm like, I don't like it. After the first 40 minutes, I was wondering whether I was going to like it. And now, I'm just not going to watch it, Harmon. I mean, it wasn't any good this year.
No, there was nothing there. I mean, the biggest drama was making sure everything got moved from St. Louis to Los Angeles, and how much compelling television can you put on that? We can't find the weight plate.
Well, as a guy who, once had my team stolen and then went and stole another team back, I still find it to be relatively unsavory. I'm sort of pissed off for those people in St. Louis, to be honest with you.
Yes and no. You're right. I mean, it came there kind of under dubious circumstances, and, because the guy had a lot of money. And look, if you've been to St. Louis, you recognize where that stadium is, not exactly a hustling, bustling, thriving community. It's a very difficult spot around where the stadium was.
But the Cardinals do okay, dude. You know what I mean? We got the same problem here with the Orioles. The Orioles don't draw. Nobody cares about the Orioles. The Orioles have made the bed that nobody cares about them. You know what I mean?
Right.
To some degree, it's about winning and losing and all that. But to some degree, when you're losing, it's about having some human skills. I mean, the guy that owns the baseball team here is a scumbag, and a lot of people don't want to give him money. A lot of businesses don't want to give him money. I don't want to give him money. I'll proudly stand up and say he's one of the biggest scumbags I've ever met in my life. And that's why I don't support the team. And, I would say the same thing could be said for the Rams now. For anybody that got screwed over, they can say, that guy was from Missouri and stole our football team. Screw him. I'm glad I didn't buy season tickets the last 10 years.
Well, but that's just it. If they'd still been selling out and the money was there, then it works. But let's call it what it is. The L.A. market had been dangled in front of owners looking for new stadiums and new deals forever. And when you've got a guy who's worth, double-digit billions, he can just say, you know what, I'm going to go buy that and have some fun with it. There's really nothing to stop it. And when the NFL owners get together, as much as they care about the fan and the product because they need to keep the turnstiles hopping, in the end, it's still about where's the bigger win, and that was clearly Los Angeles. I mean,
but in L.A., it won't be about press conferences and all that. It really will be about winning now, right? I mean, because that's the only way it's going to work, right?
No, and that's just it. Short term, they sold a lot of seats, and for a number of the home games, they're actually looking to expand behind what the original allotment was. One, because the market demand was met. There's not great seats if they were to expand and say, hey, we've let go another 4,000 to 5,000. They're not going to be great vantage points given the configuration of the Coliseum, but folks that are thirsty to get a little taste of what's going on there, they'll be able to do it. And the secondary market, even for the opener, isn't overwhelming. I mean, when you can get in the door for under $130, I know, that sounds like a lot of money, but there's 8 games. Right, you guys know when things are winning and you go to try to find an extra ticket or two because you got friends or family coming into town, it's not a very easy proposition. In Los Angeles, the assumption was immediately everything was going to be so so off the charts expensive. Like nobody's telling you got to go buy a foam finger, a bunch of beers. Parking, you're going to get screwed. No, there's no question about it. That's just the LA way. But when you get down to it, if you can keep yourself from all the ancillary purchases, you get in and out of there relatively unscathed. You get a taste of a new team coming back in, and you see where it goes. 3 years from now, when they build the new palace, the price of entry is going to be astronomical, and I shudder to think of what it'll be. But for the short term, people can get in, and especially when UCLA and USC lose, USC getting absolutely the doors blown off, and their best players already said, that's, I guess, what we are. They're already despondent here about that. So pro football coming in is a very welcome sight.
So they can lose in pro football as well as college. Mike Harmon joining us here from Los Angeles.
Yeah, they probably will.
He is the Swollen Dome on Twitter and at Fox Sports Radio, and my dear friend out in L.A. Let's go through some games this week, man, because I don't do this a lot or enough. And, I'm one of those guys that I wasn't looking at week one until, I got off the plane from Germany the other day.
Sure.
And I started to look down. I knew Carolina was playing Denver. I sort of knew Pittsburgh and Washington were playing, and I knew a little bit about New England and Arizona. But I start to look at this and wonder who are the good teams and where are the good teams. And I kind of jump off from where I was last year, where I look at our division and say, there's no other division where there are 3 teams that might win 10 games. I put the Ravens in and might win 10 games because I believe they might win 10 games. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, I think most people believe they'll win 10 games. And then I see these first week matchups, and I start to get a little giddy that the Bengals are on the road playing a decent team with the Jets, and the Steelers are on the road playing a decent team with the Redskins. I don't know what we know about the Jets, but I think part of the perception of the Bengals is they're down a little bit this year because of the wide receivers.
Well, that's just there. You lose Jones and Sanu. Jones will be in Detroit. Very interesting guy for those fantasy players out there. He's a sneaky play in week one with the matchup they have. But the Jets, we know they can play defense. We believe between Forte and Bilal Powell to be able to run the ball. Cincinnati, beyond their wide receivers, Tyler Eifert's not available. And say what you will about him in terms of his development, in some of the parts of the game that he doesn't have. The guy can catch the ball. The guy is a beast in the red zone. So now you've got A.J. Green and a bunch of guys. We have no idea what to expect from Andy Dalton. The run game will be strong there, but just a lot of questions. No Vontaze Burfict for the first 3 weeks. So this is a chance for the Jets, as bad as they looked during the preseason, to just get back to basics, and they should be just fine. You mentioned the Pittsburgh-Washington game. That one, you look at the over-under, and that's where you always have a little bit of fun. It's sitting at 51. As you and I get ready for a big weekend, and you're looking at Kirk Cousins and the offense, Jordan Reed, whoever emerges out of the backfield, they're looking for Matt Jones to be the guy. But Pittsburgh, defensively, we know secondary's been a problem, so they're going to have to put up points. So I think that's one of the things as you look at the slate. We know the NFL has a lot of fun giving you some sexy matchups to get the tongues wagging, even though they know they don't need to, but they do it for you because, they love you.
Well, I would say, I would say the 1 o'clock matchups, I'm going to be sitting at the Ravens game. The Green Bay-Jacksonville game is sexier than it looks, right? And I think we learn a lot about Jacksonville and Oakland as the sort of dark horse team, and Houston as well this weekend. If Jacksonville's real and we play them week 3, the Ravens have as fortuitous and early schedules they've had in some recent time. They get a banged-up Bills team at home. They go to Cleveland next week. Then they go to Jacksonville. We always think of Jacksonville as a winnable game. I'm fascinated to see if they can step up. This is the matchup of the weekend that I'm watching is Green Bay-Jacksonville.
Well, what's funny is with the Jaguars, everybody's giddy about the offense, and they're like, here's Blake Bortles back for another round. Go deeper into the numbers last year as to when he was throwing touchdowns. Usually they built themselves a big hole. Well, they improved a lot defensively. You bring in Jackson, you get Fowler, you bring in Miles Jack and some other help for the secondary with your top picks. So you're looking at a defense that should be much more formidable, and Chris Ivory going down there to pair with T.J. Yeldon is going to be pretty interesting to watch. On the Green Bay side of things, we watched it all go to hell last year when Eddie Lacy looked like me, where you wanted to poke him in the belly and see if he was popping fresh. And then you had, on the other side, Jordy Nelson. Do his knees hold up? Because if he's not there, you saw that offense absolutely decimated. Devontae Adams can't catch. Randall Cobb proved he's a number 2 and not a guy that can take on number 1 corners. They bring in Jared Cook, who's had a long run, but has never really lived up to the expectations from his time with the Rams. So now is he a guy down the seams that offers value? So for Green Bay, a lot of questions as they go on the road for week one. Fascinating. Oakland, New Orleans, not, we talk about the two stars on the Oakland defense, right? And they'll be able to get after it. I don't know if the rest of that unit is very good. And so when you look at New Orleans, they're going to move fast. Drew Brees with his usual 5 weapons going out there. Everybody excited about Kobe Fleener and kicking to the wayside the fact that they brought in rookie Michael Thomas out of Ohio State. You got Willie Snead, who was nearly a 1,000-yard receiver last year, and Brandon Cooks getting it done. Ingram, one of the few sledgehammers still left in the game. I don't think it's going to be an easy as road for the Raiders as all the preseason previews would have you believe. They got a lot of press. I'm still curious if they can live up to it.
We have Mike Harmon on. He is the Swollen Dome on Twitter as well as at Fox Sports Radio, getting week one going here. I'm just trying to find teams that can prove something to me one way or the other. And, on the back end of the college football weekend where there were so many upsets, you sort of go into these games and think the team that was better last year will be better this year. As far as sort of week 17 of last year, we wonder whether Green Bay is going to pick up where they left off. And then there are some places where I don't even know that you could compare last year to this year, like Philadelphia and Minnesota with the quarterback swap all the last week. It starts to look to me like there are still a lot of bad teams in the league, maybe 10 or 12 that I look at and I scratch my head wondering how they can think they're a playoff team right now.
Yeah, there are a number of teams that we're already looking at the draft. That's why it was so interesting with Philadelphia and the trade with Minnesota, the Vikings, with many factors working in we need to win now category. Between getting Sam Bradford, who's got 2 years left on his deal, you don't know what Teddy Bridgewater is going forward. His surgery is scheduled right at the weekend. So you've got at least a stable option. And when given a little bit of support, a little bit of an offensive line help, Sam Bradford last season, pretty solid. Look at the back end of the season that he had. He's more than just a functional, serviceable kind of guy. And they've got some decent, not world-beating options downfield, but guys that can get it done. So, and Adrian Peterson's 31 years old. So it makes sense. Go make the play, bring a guy in that can help be more than just a water carrier for you as you go. As for Philadelphia, they've decided that it's push all in time. Chase Daniel brought in a backup that they're going to pay as much as the Vikings will pay on the balance of Bradford's contract for the year. But they decide Carson Wentz, with very little experience in the preseason and really not a lot to show for it in terms of serviceability, gets the start. I never understand hey, you've got to go do it now in this CBA because you're not getting the big oversized novelty check. That ended with Bradford.
Well,
years ago.
You talk about sexy games that the league tries to offer. The Sunday night matchup's about as sexy as it gets, except it's missing Tom Brady. When they put this on the schedule,
Jimmy Garoppolo's a good-looking guy.
He's a good-looking ball player. Arizona has a lot of promise there, and I guess you either buy into Carson Palmer or you do not. It's sort of now or never for them, I think. I mean, they've been on the cusp of this for 2 years now. This has to be their year, and this has to be a victory on Sunday night.
Well, that is exactly it. They've got to get it started. And what's interesting is if you looked at the line, New England a slight favorite, even on the road, even with Jimmy Garoppolo getting it done.
That's the Belichick factor, right? You never bet against Belichick.
You never bet against him when that's the game that's on his schedule for months at a time. And, the cliche, they'd love nothing more than to flip a double bird to the NFL and say, look, we got the guy from Eastern Illinois. Hi, we're still winning. So you've got that. It'll be interesting to see how their offense plays out, how many shots downfield Garoppolo's going to take. Not that that's an offense that's predicated on the deep ball, but occasionally you'll bust a guy, lose some, and either Bennett or Gronkowski is suddenly 25, 30 yards downfield down the seam. Watching those two get together with James White and LeGarrette Blount out of the backfield, it's going to be interesting against that Arizona defense, one of the best secondaries going. But to answer your question, I don't believe in Carson Palmer over another full year. I don't know how good that offensive line is. That's going to be one of the things we're watching out of the gate here. We love David Johnson. Question of his durability, even though he's a big play guy. Got deep receiving core. But the question of Palmer over a full 16 games, I'm seeing MVP couch coming out for him. He's still got to go through Seattle. And even if everything else falls apart offensively, the Rams can get after him on defense as well.
Boy, the perception for everyone is that Seattle's pretty good, right? I mean, I haven't talked to anyone that doesn't like them. They're sort of the sweetheart pick to be the NFC representative in a lot of ways. And, they've been a powerhouse for a number of years. Last year taking a little bit of a hiccup, but people are on board that they could be the best team in the NFC this year.
Yeah, you see a little bit of things changing up. This is the year that we find out, for all those that want to criticize how Russell Wilson runs a team, right, in terms of all those pinball kind of numbers and no more Marshawn Lynch, which really saddens me. One of my favorite guys to watch and, to listen to these last couple of years.
As long as you don't have to interview him, he's fine, man.
But you know what? It's like when you go to Belichick or Popovich or what else, you know what you're going to get. So just have fun with it. And just make it to where you get a good soundbite out of whatever question he decides not to answer. But when you look at, Rawls and Christian Michael has always been really good in August. Is he any good when they start running the ball? That's why, when I started doing all the rankings and looking at the fantasy land, Cam Newton doubled his production from 2014 to 2015. Progression a little bit for him. That's why Russell Wilson's my number one quarterback, looking for more from Baldwin, more from Tyler Lockett. Eventually Jimmy Graham might catch a pass or two down the way, but I don't know that the run game is going to be able to carry them, and I think the defense takes a little bit of a step back. That said, there was a big enough gap to where they're still the team to be chased.
Harmon, are you off the Baltimore bandwagon or on, man? What do you got the Ravens this year? You got them making the playoffs, not making the playoffs? Beliefs?
I'll be honest, before Ben Watson got hurt, I was a lot more bullish.
Okay, fair enough.
I was a big fan 74 catches for New Orleans a year ago, a guy that is a stabilizer and a locker. There's a million things that, the loss of Ben Watson for the NFL for the year was a much bigger deal than just, hey, here's a guy who's a tight end in Baltimore. I mean, he was one of the guys that was out front and, really talking about, get people together, all these things we've been talking these last couple of weeks. And I know you still had a trace on it while you were overseas, with the Kaepernick protests and everything.
Sure.
A lot of what he was saying is stuff Ben Watson's been working in the community.
Well, these are social issues in an election year.
Yeah.
I mean, the Kaepernick thing, I stood at the beginning and said, I'm not an outrage guy. I'm just not. And nothing can outrage me. He's like a sort of a B-list actor to me who acted out, and God bless him. It's been a lightning rod for everyone, but I'm shocked it doesn't happen more often. I'm shocked more guys aren't a little more upset with how the country's being run right now. That's all.
No, that's it. You wonder where the conversation spiders from here. They had the DeMarcus Cousins thing in Mobile, Alabama, meeting with police and school leaders and community leaders and parents and concerned residents. So, hopefully there's a spidering effect where the superstars get out and about. Not to make it about this, but, you got a bunch of guys coming back healthy. The re-signing of Justin Forsett stabilizes what was a bit of an unknown in the backfield. Certainly excited about Dixon and Terrence West. I've always been a Terrence West fan, and any guy that has an opportunity to show how badly Cleveland mischaracterized and evaluated players is always good by me. But when you have the opportunity here, it's all about staying healthy. I mean, last year, a good team that got derailed bit by bit and had, a saw coming for appendages seemingly on a weekly basis. This week and this season, it's all about staying healthy. And if you can get that push back off the D-line and stay healthy, I think they're right in the mix for a playoff contention. And I think as we started this conversation, you mentioned, the North and having three teams that are there. And what'll be interesting to see is if RG3 isn't broken in half, how much can he push that offense with all those speed weapons to where they're just good enough to help mess things up and really jumble the North and make it an exciting finish.
He is Mike Harmon, the Swollen Dome on Twitter, as well as at Fox Sports Radio. Last thing for you. Did you guys on the national level notice how empty Camden Yards was last week? I mean, I certainly took some phone calls on it from Toronto, from Philadelphia, some other places hitting me and saying, why is it so empty? Cleveland's empty too. I mean, there's a lot of baseball, and I know you're out in L.A. watching the Dodgers, and I know you're from Chicago, and all the magic happening on the north side. I saw that at the Pearl Jam concerts 2 weeks ago when I was out there. But baseball, boy, baseball's in trouble here if winning doesn't make you want to come to the ballpark. I've been through this with the ownership here. Obviously, it's the 10th anniversary of Free the Birds. I'll be talking about that 2 weeks from now as well. But this is what happens when a city falls out of love with a franchise, and the franchise just becomes something that sits in the corner, and maybe we go and they give away a bobblehead.
No, that's just it. I watched that for years when I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'd go to Oakland A's games after they had that run with the pitching staff, Miguel Tejada, Giambi, all those guys. The only time anybody showed up is when they were giving out a bobblehead. So guess what they did? 15 nights a year, they were giving out bobbleheads to anybody who played more than 2 years in the city of Oakland. Here's the fourth different variation of Vita Blue. Come out this, that kind of thing. So it's a sad state of affairs, but everybody's looking to disperse their entertainment dollar and everything. We talk about cord cutting and all of those different measures that go through. Hell, here in Los Angeles, they wanted to throw a parade when they announced that they were going to televise the final 6 Dodger games on KTLA, so people could actually see the end of the regular season with Vin Scully after several years of, hey, is it blacked out on ESPN or is it not? Being the discussion points in so many few.
That's so bizarre. I mean, I can't think of anything more stupid for your business than restricting the access of your product to your fans. I mean,
well, I grew up in Chicago. Right?
Oh, right. You watched the Blackhawks. I remember.
With the Blackhawks for years, right? Fortunately, that was one of our passions. So my brothers and I were in the third level many years.
Dude, it's the only thing that keeps me going is that those knuckleheads out there, the old man died and the kids fixed it and you had a couple of parades. That's what keeps me going, Harmon, as an Oriole fan. That's what keeps me going. That someday this creep won't own the team anymore.
Well, yeah, you keep waiting for someone that randomly shows up with a big oversized novelty check and a photo op. And it goes into the good night, and then you revamp how you do your business. You welcome people back in. You mend all those fences with the superstars that you flip the bird to, no pun intended, and had the acrimony. That's all that went on in Chicago, and we've seen it in a lot of other markets. And surely there, same kind of thing, that winning doesn't do it. And to some degree, you understand. People start looking at their budgets, and they say, you know what? That's one more Ravens game I can get to. That's one more Ravens road trip I can jump around with Nestor and go flying around. You know what I mean? Like that, you reallocate resources when you don't feel like you're being attended to. And I think that's the case in a lot of major league cities where the dollars and cents, now they don't rack up the same way the NFL does in terms of the revenue, but certainly we're not talking about nickels and dimes here. So if there's no incentive for you to improve your product and the check keeps coming in, why bother?
You've just described Masson and Peter Angelos to a T. Great having you on, Mike, as always, man. Enjoy the football season. Great previewing it with you, and we'll stay in touch. Hope to see you out in L.A. soon, man.
Fired up, buddy. Talk to you soon.
You got it. Mike Harmon, the Swollen Dome on Twitter, as well as at Fox Sports Radio. You can find me in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear from wherever you are. Our morning newspaper is delivered directly to your email inbox free of charge. All you need to do is sign up at WNST.net. It is the WNST morning newspaper. It's brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Last but not least, breaking news. Well, that happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis Kolatzis will be here on Thursday, driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the Sunday Sports Voice on WNST. I'm Nestor. You can reach me, nasty, at WNST.net, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook Live, as well as streaming on our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.